Welcome back, y'all, to our new podcast, The Light in My Shadow, sponsored by Jai Bhakti Yoga Foundation. The Light in My Shadow is a personal recovery journey through BPD, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, suicidal ideation, and complex trauma. I educate and share techniques and practices of Ayurveda and yoga to address mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health, highlighting the heavy issues hidden in the tissues. I realized that in order for me to change my life, to stop these patterns, I needed to stop feeling sorry for myself and start taking action to be the kind of person that I want to be with. This was a hard realization, but one that triggered this recovery journey. I am your host, Christina, and I have been living with bipolar disorder, manic depression, suicidal ideation, and complex trauma since 1995, and officially diagnosed with BPD in 2022. I share my story and open up with no filter about my personal struggles, challenges, and successes. This is my journal, my thoughts, my interpretation of how to holistically manage these disorders, using the resources that resonate, and of course, leaving the rest. The journey here of recovery is very difficult, and it's very different for each of us. This is a space where I feel safe opening up to you all in hopes that I may be able to shine a light in your shadow. I want to preface that I am not a doctor as of this date, but I am an Ayurvedic health consultant practicing freely in the city of New Orleans. Therefore, everything that I discuss in these episodes are suggestions from an Ayurvedic and yogic application that have been working for me, and merely suggestions for you, as these are based on my dosha and specific needs. You can learn more about my offerings at Jai Bhakti Yoga Foundation's website, jbyfnola.org, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook, or even subscribe on YouTube at jbyfnola. Thank you all for being here, for listening. It truly means a lot to me, more than you'll ever realize. If you would like to support the mission of bringing holistic resources to individuals in mental, emotional, and physical hardship, please share, rate, and review this podcast with them. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for showing up and being present. Welcome to episode number 2 of season 2, Facing the Hard Truth about borderline personality disorder, BPD, manic depression, bipolar, complex trauma, suicidal ideation, and unpacking emotional abuse. I want to let you know that this episode is going to be pretty heavy. It's going to be very intense for some of us, could be quite emotional. So as we're moving along through the episode, I'm actually reading to you what I've been putting together through my research. As I mentioned in my last episode, this is a journey through my nightmare life of BPD and how I work and am working to establish myself and sustain my inner peace through the light in my shadow. I will highlight areas of my life in which I still silently suffer from grief, from guilt, insecurity, a lot of that, and the shit that I need to grow through and stop putting myself through. This way I can heal myself from being the victim and living in this shame-filled hole. I call it the shame-filled hole. Guilty. This one right here, this girl, right here, guilty as charged. In doing so, more research about BPD and mental health, and mostly I'm going to be focusing on emotional abuse studies, because as it turns out, emotional abuse has a lot to do with borderline personality disorder, complex trauma, and bipolar. So we're going to unpack that in just a little bit. The roots of victimhood, according to, and I want to share that I've been doing research with this doctor called Dr. Beverly Engle, and she has a book entitled Emotional Abuse, and there's different volumes of it. In volume 5, it brings up and mentions borderline personality disorder. So we're going to be bringing a lot of that into this and many other of our episodes to come. So in doing more research about BPD and mental health, and mostly focused on emotional abuse studies, according to Dr. Beverly Engle, the roots of victimhood is just like the roots of abusiveness, which often lie in childhood abuse and neglect. We began unpacking what BPD was in the last episode, and we're going to explore my best friends that go along with BPD, bipolar, complex trauma, and suicide ideation in upcoming episodes, so that we can be really clear as we are having high-level overviews of each of these. But just to kind of give you a background, I guess, so that we're all on the same page, BPD is a mental illness that severely impacts a person's ability to manage their emotions. This loss of emotional control can increase impulsivity. It affects how a person feels about themselves and negatively impact their relationships with others. Bipolar is a disorder which is formerly called manic depressive illness. So you will no longer hear me titling things with manic depression in it, because manic depression has now been linked to bipolar because of the hypermania state, which is exactly what manic depression is, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And therefore, it's been now brought together with bipolar. So as we are growing together and healing together, we're learning together. So look at that. Bipolar disorder is a mental illness that causes unusual shifts in a person's mood, their energy, activity levels, and concentration. These shifts can make it difficult to carry out even simple day-to-day tasks. There are 3 types of bipolar disorders, by the way, and all 3 types of them involve clear changes in mood, the energy, and the activity levels. So just to give you another high-level overview of them, these moods range from periods of extremely up and elated to irritable or energized behavior known as manic episodes, to the very down and sad, indifferent, or hopeless periods, and those are known as the depressive episodes. Less severe manic episodes or manic periods are known as hypomanic episodes. Bipolar 1 disorder is defined by manic episodes that last for at least 7 days, nearly every day for most of the day, or by manic symptoms that are so severe that the person needs immediate medical care. Usually, depressive episodes occur as well, typically lasting at least 2 weeks. Episodes of depression with mixed features, having depressive symptoms and manic symptoms at the same time, are also possible. So you can go from one extreme to the other and have both at the same time, which is something that I've actually experienced quite often when I am triggered. So this is really insightful. Bipolar disorder number 1. Now, experiencing 4 or more episodes of mania and depression within a year is going to be called rapid cycling. And we'll talk about that when we dive more into bipolar disorder, but this was a really good high-level overview of what bipolar 1 is. Bipolar 2 is defined by a pattern of depressive episodes and hypermania episodes. The hypermanic episodes are less severe than the manic episodes in bipolar 1 disorder. And then the third disorder of bipolar is known as cyclothymic. And cyclothymia is defined by recurring hypomanic and depressive symptoms that are not intense enough or do not last long enough to qualify as hypomanic or depressive episodes. But it is still a good stepping stone into bipolar 1 and 2 and something to be very mindful of when you are experiencing this type of behavior. Manic depression is now categorized as bipolar disorder. One may experience symptoms of depression plus mania or hypomania at the same time. For example, one may feel very energized and impulsive while feeling upset or tearful. Or, I laugh at that because that's so me. One may also experience highs and lows very quickly after the other within the same day or hour. Bipolar 1 disorder is the most severe form of the illness, and yours truly is your girl, bipolar 1, all the way. Complex trauma is something that stems from what we've experienced in our childhood or severe trauma that has occurred in our lives. And it is categorized as a result from chronic or extremely threatening traumas. Often this trauma is also interpersonal, happens early in life, lasts for a long time, involves a mix of trauma types, or is followed by one or more unrelated traumas. Complex PTSD comes as a response to chronic traumatization. This is according to a study that was published in a blog known as Beauty After Bruises, which was a really sweet blog that talks about how we can heal and nurture ourselves after we've been bruised and wounded. So check them out, Beauty After Bruises. And they state that complex PTSD comes as a response to chronic traumatization over the course of months or more often years. This may involve emotional, psychological, physical, and or sexual abuses, circumstances of domestic violence, life in a war zone, or being held captive, human trafficking, child exploitation, or other organized rings of abuse and or many other grueling circumstances. Guys, that's a lot. There are people like my best friend that she had a horrible experience, and she's going to share that experience in one of our upcoming episodes, and she talks about being a captive. And she talks about Stockholm Syndrome and what she experienced through that and what others have experienced through that, because you fall for these captors and these types of behaviors, and this creates a complex trauma. It becomes a response mechanism and a survival mechanism. Complex trauma is interpersonal in nature, and survivors are typically at the complete and total control of another person, often unable to meet their most basic needs without them. They also have limited belief that it may never ever end, with no ability to foresee or even imagine a time that they may be free. While there are definitely circumstances where adults develop complex trauma, it is most commonly seen in trauma during childhood. I want to pause there for a second because I want to quickly dissect that life in a war zone or being held captive, and how there are circumstances where adults are going to begin developing complex traumas, because for some it's because you have somebody trying to control you, or your mental health is really taking over your rational mind, your emotions are taking over your rational mind. And these are areas that we tend to start to lose ourselves in. And when they say, hey, I lost myself in this person, I lost myself in this circumstance, this is why we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves so much that by the time we find somebody that actually gives a shit about us, we no longer know what it's like to feel anything but doing whatever it is that we need to do to make them happy, because that's going to in turn make us happy. And we don't really know what it means to be happy because that's been stripped away for so long. So that takes a lot of reflection, and it takes a lot of time to really go back and figure that out. What the hell makes me happy? Because I've just been through so much shit. Like, nothing really makes me happy. I just make pretend I'm happy. So this is where, for those who are older, it requires a level of control over them that begins to break down the psyche, and in turn breaks down the cycle, disrupting their sense of self, their outlook on the world, and the former conceptualization of where they belong in the world. Where do they even belong in it, right? So this is something I recently re-experienced with my ex after falling out with him, and with my estranged grandfather as well. Go figure. Because I was so used to this treatment that it was really hard for me to have the willpower and the knowledge to take the steps to get out of the situation. And then finally, I did it. Finally, I built enough courage so that I can move forward. Anyway, I digress. I want to keep reading from Beauty After Bruises, that she says, another important thing to know is that trauma to children resulting in complex PTSD, as well as dissociative disorders, which we'll talk about in another episode, is usually deeply interpersonal within that child's caregiving system. So now we have to explore, how is this child nurtured? How is this child cared for? How is I cared for? How is I nurtured? Separate from both the traumatic events and the perpetrator, there is often an added component of neglect. Key point: hot and cold affections. Yes, I've experienced this from a primary caregiver, or outright invalidation of the trauma if the child does try to speak up. I want to talk about that real quick because, y'all, I unfortunately am a victim of that shit. What happened to me at 6 years old should not have happened to a 6-year-old. And for a 6-year-old to have that component of neglect from her mom and her dad, her family, the people that she's running to for help because she doesn't know what to do about her uncle inappropriately abusing her and using her nightly for his needs. And even to be as bold as throughout the day in broad daylight while my younger sister's in another room at any moment be able to pop out and witness something so horrific. And that kind of neglect, that kind of hot and cold affection from my primary caregivers that I was so deeply in love with that I would move mountains for. And I couldn't speak up because I was shunned. I was told it was my fault that this shit happened to me. The fuck? So yeah, these disorganized attachments, y'all, and mixed messages from those who are supposed to provide love, comfort, and safety, all in the periphery of extreme trauma, can give way to even more unique struggles that PTSD sufferers alone don't always face. This hits because after my husband left me, and later my mom dying, this was rock bottom for me, y'all. When all of this shit happened with COVID, and like my husband and I tried for the second time, and it didn't work out, and we went our separate ways, it was like the end of the world. And he was like my favorite person. He was the only person I had that got me and that I trusted with everything in my being. And it was all ripped away. And then my mom dies, and then I'm homeless, and I'm surfing and couch surfing, and I meet my best friend, Vegan J is what I call him. And she really helped me a lot. And he introduced me to my new best friend, who's like my everything and my favorite person. We're going to have a conversation about favorite people, but he's also the very same person that causes a lot of pain in me too. But unfortunately, like after my husband left and my mom died and all that, it was like beyond rock bottom. And I know a lot of you have gone through that moment in your life where everything that can go wrong goes wrong. You know, like for me, it was like my husband leaving, my mom dying, my cat dying, I lost my family, I didn't have a home, my couch surfed for like 3 years, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, open into whoever's arms would hold me for a fucking night because like I needed someone to just make me feel like I was something for somebody, and let alone just being taken advantage of constantly, because that's what all these motherfuckers do anyway when you're in such a dark state. And there are days where I would remain in bed staring at the ceiling, contemplating how to end it, how to just end it all, and not leave any responsibility behind for anyone to pick up any of my mess. I just wanted to be done. I just wanted to die. I just wanted to call it quits. A suicide ideation, that shit's really real. Especially if you're someone that deals with it every single day, or you wake up with it, or you wake up with thinking about it, or before you go to bed, or you'll lie to someone and say, oh no, babe, I think about you before I go to bed at night. No, actually, I'm thinking about how many different ways can I kill myself because I don't know if tomorrow is going to be that day that I make it. But at the same time, I get so excited about life because to me, on the outside, everything's rainbows and motherfucking unicorns. On the inside, everything is razors and daggers, and it just sucks. But I want to be in a space as I evolve where I can be like, man, today's going to be a good day. And I woke up today and I'm able to make my coffee, and I did it. That was my goal. Get up and make a cup of coffee. Success. Suicide ideation is the ideation exists on a spectrum of intensity, beginning with a general desire to die that lacks any concrete method, plan, intention, or action, and progressing to active suicidal ideation, which involves a detailed plan and a determined intent to act on the ideas. That's a study from Harvard that he wrote in 2024, and it's true. I've gotten to a point openly that I no longer just think about it. I start thinking about and planning how and when I should do these things. If I should do these things. And if I do these things, I got all this shit in my house. What's going to happen to it? It's just going to end up in a thrift store. So maybe I should sell it all so that I don't have any responsibilities behind for anybody. Or maybe I leave it all behind to all of the people. They can take whatever they want as a token of a memory of me. And these are the things I think about. When my cat died, I really felt like I had nothing else to live for, because it was like mom and cat. What else do I have? I don't got anybody. What's the fucking point? And so I think about this shit all the time, but yet I smile. Namaste, motherfucker. I'm still doing my yoga practice. I'm still living this experience of being human. And at the same time, it's the hardest thing to get through. So yeah, the shit sucks because it's a complexity, because sometimes I can sit and relive my trauma over and over again like it happened yesterday. Especially if I'm in a relationship or being intimate with somebody and they say something like, just take it, or this is how you give and receive love, or this is how I show you my love. Like, I just freeze and I'm like, holy fucking shit. They're all the same. And I just want to be done with that. Get the fuck off with me. And don't talk to me again. You may have heard suicidal ideation referred to as suicidal thoughts. Not everyone with suicidal ideation acts on it. I'm still here. But it is important to keep in mind, because many borderlines, pointing at myself right now if you're listening to the podcast, and BPD individuals have the tendency, and I meant to say like bipolars and borderlines, because BPDers, y'all, were called borderlines. We individuals have the tendencies to attempt suicide, and about 9% of us actually successfully go through with it. And then you have psychotic disorders that we're going to break down so that you have an understanding about what that means. And please feel free to pause the podcast at any time and take a break if it's a little bit much, because I'm giving you some history about what it is that I have, what you have, what we have, what the fuck is going on with us. We're giving you that information right now so that you have a really good understanding. This is all coming from different research papers and studies and books that I've been diving into, really getting to the root of what is borderline personality disorder, what is manic depression, what is complex trauma, why do we have these, where did it come from, is it some sort of thing that we can now change through epigenetics? So this is why I'm giving you this information, because I know we have the power to make some super awesome changes in ourselves. But it's going to take a lot of grit, y'all. It's going to take a lot of piss, shit, and fuck. We're going to be crying our little happy little eyes out one good day, and another good day we're going to be jumping off a banister happy, not jumping off a banister to kill ourselves. Please don't take it that way. Okay. Psychotic disorders, they're going to result in the presence of one or more of the following 5 categories. Guys, do not judge yourself when you hear these categories, and also don't put yourself in the category. Just because we're called borderlines doesn't mean that we're horrible people. All right? Doesn't mean that we're not good people. It doesn't mean that we're not any better than. This is our superpowers, y'all. Let's just consider it that. And now, widen the net of your hearing, as my favorite yoga teacher says, and just observe. Don't attach. Let's do this. Psychotic disorders, 5 of them. The categories: delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thought. This is without support of extracurricular drugs, okay? Disorganized behaviors, and negative symptoms. When symptoms are severe People with psychotic disorders have trouble staying in touch with reality and often are unable to handle daily life. There are different types of psychotic disorders, including schizophrenia, delusional disorder, shared psychotic disorder, substance-induced psychotic disorder due to another medical condition, paraphrenia. I butchered that one. Okay. And now let's just give them a little and brief psychotic disorder. Okay. Of the schizophrenic side of things, people with this illness have changes in behaviors and other symptoms, such as delusions and hallucinations that last longer than 6 months. It usually affects them at work and at school, as well as in their relationships. There are some known early warning signs of schizophrenia as well, and I'll encourage you to go over to Calabresi's research paper over on his website for schizophrenia, and I'll give you that link at the bottom because it has so much information that is really, really helpful. Okay? Schizophrenic. So there's also schizoaffective disorder, which is part of the schizophrenia family. These people have symptoms of both schizophrenia and mood disorder, such as depression or bipolar disorder. This is why it's not very nice to call somebody crazy, because it's a very sensitive word to use for borderlines, for those that have severe depression and traumas, for these reasons. Okay. There's schizophreniform disorder, and this includes the symptoms of schizophrenia, but the symptoms last for a shorter time, and they're between 1 and 6 months. So traditionally, schizophrenia is pretty much more of a healing. You get healed by there. I hate to use the word healed, but it's curable. There's brief psychotic disorder. People with this illness have a sudden short period of psychotic behavior, often in response to a very stressful event, such as death in the family. Recovery is often quick, but it usually about a month or so, but not more than that, which is called brief psychotic disorder. Again, where we know complex trauma stems from grief and guilt, borderlines, depression. So if not treated, brief psychotic disorder can ultimately amount and transition and turn into something much, much more severe. Then we go into delusional disorder, which is the key symptom is having a delusion. Okay. And these are a false or fixed belief involving a real life situation that could be true but isn't, such as being followed, being plotted against, or having a disease. The delusion lasts for at least a month, sometimes a little bit longer. And I want to just let you know something very important here about delusional disorders. This can lend itself to those that like to stalk or sleuth people online. Nowadays, everybody seems to be a sleuther. But delusional disorders, if you're in a relationship with somebody that has this, layered with ADHD and borderline themselves, be very cautious, because I was in one with someone that was delusional, and it was a very dangerous situation to be in. So please keep that in mind. Shared psychotic disorder is also called a folie à deux, and this illness happens when one person is in a relationship and has a delusion, and the other person in the relationship begins to adopt it. Now, when we get into emotional abuse in just a few minutes, remember shared psychotic disorder. Remember that. Substance-induced psychotic disorder. Well, this is pretty self-explanatory, don't you think?
This condition is caused by the use of or withdrawal from drugs, such as hallucinogens and crack cocaine, that cause hallucinations, delusions, or confused speech. Psychotic disorder due to another medical condition, and hallucinations, delusions, or other symptoms may happen because of another illness that affects brain function, such as a head injury or tumor, like a brain tumor. There's paraphrenia, which is a condition that has symptoms similar to schizophrenia or a delusional disorder and is not formally recognized in the DSM-5. And I told you I'm going to be using that very, very often because the DSM-5 is what all of our medical world uses, and that is where they have the categorizations of all of the current mental illnesses, or just all of the illnesses that they're using right now. It starts late in life when people are elderly and may be related to a neurological problem. So I wanted to go through all of that because there's a difference. Those of us with borderline personality disorder are not schizophrenic. Those that are schizophrenic may not always necessarily have borderline or even complex trauma. So it's important to do your research before you jump into self-diagnosis and or start claiming or judging or labeling others. I had to do a lot of work and still do a lot of work till this day by taking long periods to reflect on what is happening in my life right now. Sometimes I reflect on who is in my life that is adding to my growth or adding to my pain, and is it time to remove that? So now we're going to get into emotional abuse. This is going to be very sensitive, y'all. So again, please don't put yourself into categories. Open your ears because it's going to get heavy. It's going to get hard. It's going to get a little emotional. But we have this. We got each other. Okay? Emotional abuse can be the most powerful thing a person can endure because it's abuse of your soul and your mind. And that quote comes from Latasha Braxton. Dr. Beverly Engle reminds me to hold myself responsible for my part, saying, the only walk of shame is the shame I felt for myself. I reflect on this question often. Am I abusing others with my roller coaster of psychosis? Or do they not get me? And I did that like bunny finger thing, you know? Or are they adding to my issues and triggering my poor behavior? Basically, are they bringing the worst out in me? Are they fucking up my shit? Or am I letting them fuck my shit up? This is the part where I begin to face some serious hard truths about myself and review the people that I consider close to me. Even those that have been there through some of the darkest and hardest times because they somehow enjoy triggering you. And all they want to do is claim they want to see you smile and laugh and all that shit, but they actually really enjoy hurting you more than anything, and it makes them laugh. And then there's some of those people that enjoy triggering you and then they want to lift you and support you, and others that like seeing you miserable. So this is something that Colleen told me in a past interview that I did with her on Instagram on the at the Jai Bhakti Yoga Instagram page and many moons back in season 1. She said, how bad does it have to get? Guys, how bad does it have to fucking get for us to wake the fuck up? Come on. Seriously, like this is something I struggle with because I constantly say this to myself. And then I ask myself, like, why am I hanging out with these people? Why do they do this to me? Like, why does this person do this to me? Emotional abuse, you start to question yourself. It goes back to what we just talked about in that psychotic disorder where the other person tries to make the other person play along with it. Sometimes this guy, my best friend, my favorite person, or the people that you keep close to you will ask you, why are you smiling? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Where are you talking to? Why are you talking to that person? I don't like that person. For fuck's sake, I'm just doing my own thing. I'm just trying to get my shit together. And I don't need to get the third fucking degree simply because, I'm on my phone looking at a pug video or, a girl working out so I can get an idea on how to work out. It's just, it sucks because I can't ever seem to fucking win. And I guess it's really not about winning. I guess it's really not about any of that. I guess it's really about truly reflecting on the company that you keep. Bad company corrupts good behavior. So why would I want to keep some bad company around? Why would I want to have that kind of energy in my fucking field? I need to check my chakras just as much as I want to check somebody else's. Whatever. And I even literally wrote whatever. I can't catch a fucking break just to be in my own space, even when I travel. And that's the hardest thing sometimes. You've got to just digress back into the space of recognizing and observing your behaviors and your patterns. For one, I learned that manic depression has been recategorized as bipolar with hypermanic episodes. The other takeaway is discovering emotional abuse as a major contributing factor towards the onset of my BPD. It's no wonder that at this point, I'm so jaded by entertaining a relationship or intimacy because it's only a temporary relief for a glimmer of what love or acceptance is for a while. And then it's over. Once dude gets what he wants, he's off to his next victim. And I just accept that I was used again and I move on. Erasing the person completely from my life anyway. Any memory, any pictures, any gifts, anything whatsoever, even down to the clothes I wore on whatever dates would be getting rid of. I will keep a damn thing. Talk about I will erase you because I'm really good at it. I think I've mastered the art of removing people and erasing people. Borderlines are prone to this type of self-sabotage and emotional self-abuse, and they're also prone to this type of erasure, getting rid of those that no longer serve their greater good. Dr. Engle says shame is at the core of most types of emotional abuse, and shame is the primary damage that emotional abuse brings. This goes for both male and female victims, y'all, for lack of a better word. Dr. Engle also notes that BPD can cause men and women to become abusive to their partners. In fact, many abusers are not all narcissists. They happen to be individuals that have strong borderline tendencies or diagnosed with BPD. Well, here comes confession. I hate to admit this, but one time, my best friend told me to my face during a heated argument early on in our friendship. And this was very shortly after I had left my husband. We were no longer together, and he said, the abused has become the abuser. The abused has become the abuser. And then 4 years later, we escalated our friendship into into a space that it was resentment, anger, whatever you want to call it. But it got to a point where we physically beat each other up and fought each other over something as stupid as a set of keys after 4 years of being best of the best of best friends. I'll never forget that moment, y'all. It was terrible because cops were involved, like our mutual friends were involved that we love so much, and our relationship, like our friendship relationship, is no longer the same as much as it wanted to be. But I literally almost put my fucking friend in jail, y'all. Like, in jail. This is the man, the one fucking man that came into my life that looks at me like a human, that looks at me as someone that has potential, as someone that he believes in, as someone that he doesn't fuck. He doesn't touch me inappropriately, nor ever even tries to touch me, let alone. This man has given me the fucking world, literally has taken me all over the world and has given me the best of the best gifts to support this business and everything that Jai Bhakti Yoga had ever tried to do on any type of digital platform. This is the one individual that I trust with my entire existence and life and everything. Well, and Danielle and JT. But this one individual, he's like my bestest friend, my big brother, my father, my mentor, my teacher, and the biggest thorn in my fucking side ever that you can ever think of. But he means the world to me because he's the only one that has shown me the most respect and hasn't left my side. And that means everything. Why do I need anybody else? You probably ask. Well, because I would like to have somebody to actually fuck too at some point in my life. Come on, let's be real. We do need that as like human beings in relationships, which we will talk about down the road. But this is that one person, and I literally almost put this guy in jail. We literally fought each other. I literally fought him. You guys, that's how fucked up this shit can get. That's how bad our shit can get. It can get to a point where we're about to lose some of the closest people to us because we don't know how to self-regulate and control ourselves. That's how important this is. Emotional abuse is the quiet killer of myself and my relationships. It is the non-physical, physical, and attitude of emotional abuse that is designed to control, intimidate, subjugate, demean, punish, or isolate another person through the use of degradation, humiliation, and fear. It ranges from verbal abuse to more subtle tactics, including the refusal to be pleased. It's why we boarders are so hard to please, because we vacillate between thoughts and are hypermanic, hence the bipolar. But this is also very hard because it's hard to please us. We go from one extreme to the next extreme at a drop of a dime. And it's hard for our partners. It's hard for people that want to be with someone who has BPD, that has bipolar, that has it all right here. Because we do this to our partners without even realizing it half the time. And it's how we were raised. It's how I was raised. It's all that I was shown, and whatever and however I was shown love, well, guess how I'm going to show it to you. You know, the worst is that many of us were raised this way, and emotional abuse can look like this, and it comes in a couple of different forms. And I know we've gone pretty long on this one, so I've got a little bit more to talk about, and I promise you I'll try to keep these much shorter and not digress so much. Emotional abuse looks like this. Humiliation and degradation, discounting and discounting and negating, domination and control, judging and criticizing, accusing and blaming, trivial and unreasonable demands or expectations. My number one is emotional distancing, the silent treatment, and isolation. Right here. Withholding of attention or affection. That one destroys me. Disapproving, dismissive, contemptuous, or condescending looks, comments, and behavior. Sulking and pouting. Projection and or accusations. Subtle threats of abandonment, either physical or emotional. I think I'm guilty, have done all of that. I think all of it. Emotional abuse attitudes consist of believing others should do as you say, not noticing how others feel, can be confused for sociopathic behavior as well. Not caring how others feel can be confused and sociopathic behavior. Believing that everyone else is inferior to you, believing that you are always right. And Virgos, sidebar, I know we're always right, but that one doesn't count. There's always an exception to the rule. Just kidding. Emotional abuse in physical form is called symbolic behavior. Now, these we've all done at some point, I'm sure. Slamming doors, kicking and punching walls, throwing dishes, furniture, or other objects, driving recklessly while victim is in the car, destroying or threatening to destroy objects the victim values, making threatening gestures or faces, acting like they want to kill the victim or carry symbolic threats of violence. So guys, the root now is facing emotional abuse head on without confusing it with BPD and company. Because of how delicate and confusing this can be for someone with BPD, keep in mind many cultures like the Latino culture are raised on emotional abuse. Emotional abuse, according to Dr. Beverly Engle, is extremely damaging. It's more than physical abuse. It is the most detrimental to self-esteem and the most harmful form of violence. Emotional abuse cuts to the very core of a person, creating scars that may be longer lasting than physical ones. Most importantly, the insults, insinuations, criticisms, and accusations slowly eat away at the victim's self-esteem until they are incapable of judging the situation realistically. They may begin to believe that there is something wrong with them or even fear that they are losing their mind. So I don't know if you guys ever saw American Horror Story season 7, Cult, in 2017. And it's the one where Sarah Paulson plays the victim and she's the one being emotionally abused. And her girlfriend is the one who's a serial killer with a group of other killers. And they wear these funny masks. And her girlfriend makes her think that she is actually going more crazy than what she is. And she's making her see things that aren't even there. And saying she'll see her girlfriend dressed as the murderer. And then she'll have an episode, she'll freak out and cover her eyes, and her girlfriend will come to her and rescue her and act like, oh, what's wrong, honey? You didn't see anything. What's going on? That's the kind of bullshit that this is talking about. It's so intense. I'm going to circle back to this in an upcoming episode because it is so important to recognize this behavior. So I'm actually going to read to you the quick page, few pages I want to read to you so that you get a better understanding, and it's from Dr. Engle's book. Emotional abuse is extremely damaging. The primary effects of emotional abuse are depression, lack of motivation, confusion, difficulty concentrating or making decisions. Abused partners tend to take on criticisms and rejections of their partner to be in constant turmoil, wondering things like, am I as bad as he makes me out to be, or is he just impossible to please? Should I stay in this relationship or should I go? If I'm as incompetent as he says I am, maybe I can't make it on my own. Maybe no one will ever love me again. In addition to damaging the victim, emotional abuse poisons a relationship and infuses it with hostility, contempt, and hatred. No matter how much a couple once loved each other, once emotional abuse becomes a consistent aspect of the relationship, that love is overshadowed by fear, anger, guilt, and shame. Whether it is one or both partners who are being emotionally abusive, the relationship becomes increasingly more toxic. As time goes by, in this cold and polluted environment, it is difficult for love to grow or even to survive. At the very least, emotional abuse causes the abuser and the victim to lose sight of any redeeming qualities his or her partner once had. The more a partner is allowed to degrade, criticize, or dominate his partner, the less he will respect his partner. And the more a partner is emotionally abused, the more she will slowly build up an intense hatred towards her abuser. The disrespect and hatred each partner begins to feel leads to more and more emotional abuse, and to each partner justifying inappropriate, even destructive behavior. Over time, anger can build up on the part of both abuser and victim, and emotional abuse can turn to physical violence. When emotional abuse is mutual, it becomes a matter of survival, as each partner has to constantly fend off the criticism, verbal attacks, or rejection and shore up enough strength to go on with daily tasks. As the emotional abuse takes its toll and each partner becomes less and less self-assured, each clings to the relationship even more. A destructive cycle is created even as the relationship becomes more and more abusive. Each person may become more dependent on his or her partner. And as the relationship continues to deteriorate, each partner feels further justified in becoming even more abusive. Whether you suspect you are being emotionally abused or fear that you might be emotionally abusing your partner, you need to start thinking about how each of you are emotionally abusing each other. It's time to take responsibility for our actions. That's a lot, y'all. Again, if you need to pause, come back to this in a little bit, please do so. It's probably going to be the longest episode because it has the most information in it and a lot to share in this one topic. And of course, it will be broken out throughout the duration of the podcast with all of the other things we'll be discussing. Those childhood traumas and learning to dismantle them without being triggered through journaling, yoga, dance, and even an Ayurvedic lifestyle, changes of improving your diet, your routine, along with compassion and patience with myself, especially when I fuck up, and slowly are making the big changes, is what's most important. And also, people are starting to see this in my life, which is really great. This work is not easy. It's actually going to feel lonely and quite shitty, even unbearable at times, especially if you're one that doesn't like to be alone. You'll want to fall back into your comfort zones of fuckery really quickly. Trust me, you do. For those of us that are seeking to find help without becoming another pill popping statistic and want to go down that holistic rabbit hole with me, then you've come to the right place. And if you've listened this far, then listen just a little bit more, because I'm about to give you a little bit of work. Today, we're going to grow the fuck up. That's how I'm going to talk to you, because that's how I talk to myself. And come on, motherfuckers, you guys talk to each other like this too. We're going to make a decision, and we're going to be our own fucking hero. We're going to go into this little foolish journey, and we're going to come out thriving. We're going to do this with baby steps. This was a lot to unpack today, as we well know. So we need to dive in again, maybe listen to this episode again, stop and pause and reflect as much as you need to. That's okay. I want to face some hard truths with you, and I'm going to ask you some serious questions. This is going to be your time to really widen the net of your hearing. So let's go through these questions. And my question to you are you the abuser? Or are you being emotionally abused? Bonus, are you both? Are you both? So I'm going to ask you a set of questions, okay? This comes from Beverly's book. They're very powerful. I'm going to start this off with those of you, are you being emotionally abusive? Be honest. Do you believe you have a right to make most of the decisions in the relationship? Do you insist that your partner do as you say? Do you perceive yourself as being superior to or better than your partner? Do you feel you have a right to special treatment or consideration in the relationship because of this? Do you secretly disrespect or even despise your partner because you feel they are weak, inadequate, stupid, or a pushover? Did you deliberately get involved with your partner who would allow you to maintain that dominant role in the relationship? Do you give your partner the silent treatment or withhold approval, affection, sex, or money when they don't do as you wish? Do you threaten to leave the house or to end the relationship whenever you don't get your way? In addition to your partner, do you often have disagreements or arguments with others? Do you often feel misunderstood by others? Do you often feel victimized or targeted by others? Do you think your partner and others are just too sensitive, and that is why they get their feelings hurt so often by the things you say and do? Do you think your partner should just learn how to laugh at themselves instead of taking offense when you tease them? Have you insisted that your partner drop all or most of their friends and outside activities? Have you denied doing or saying something just to make your partner doubt their perceptions or sanity? Do you believe your partner should be willing to have sex with you whenever you are in the mood, and that they should be willing to engage in any sexual activity you are interested in exploring? Have you ever threatened to find someone who would have sex with you or who would engage in the sexual activities you want to engage in if your partner doesn't? Do you experience frequent mood shifts, sometimes going from loving to rejecting in only a matter of a few minutes? Do you frequently become enraged? Are you often unaware of what causes your moods to change, but assume it is something your partner did or didn't do? Do you believe your partner should put other things aside in order to tend to your needs? Do you believe your partner should want to spend all their free time with you? And when they don't, do you accuse them of being unloving or failing as a partner? Do you telephone or text your partner at work or at home, wanting reassurance that they are still there and still love you? If your partner isn't available or doesn't respond immediately, do you become enraged? Do you question your partner incessantly about their activities when you are apart? Do you want your partner to account for every minute of their day? Do you assume they are hiding something if they can't account for what they were doing at any given time? Do you insist your partner carry a cell phone so you can always get hold of them? Have you ever listened in on your partner's phone conversations without their permission, read their text messages or emails, or made visits to their work or the place where they said they'd be just to make sure they are there? Do you insist on being in control of the money in the relationship? Do you insist that your partner ask your permission before spending any money? Or have you imposed a budget or an allowance on them? Do you require your partner to account for every penny they spend? Do you expect your partner to always have the same opinion as you? To vote the same way? To like the same activities? Have you ever threatened to hurt or destroy something of your partner's? Have you ever threatened to hurt your partner? Have you ever threatened to hurt your partner's children, family, or friends, or pets? Have you ever thrown or broken objects while in a rage at your partner or in an attempt to scare them? Have you ever refused to let your partner leave a room or your home? Have you ever pushed or shoved your partner? Now, those of you, are you being emotionally abused? Answer these questions. Do you feel as if your partner treats you like a child? Does your partner constantly correct you or chastise you because your behavior is inappropriate? Do you feel you must get permission before going somewhere or before making even the smallest decisions? Do you have to account for any money you spend, or do they attempt to control your spending even though they have no problem spending on themselves? Does your partner treat you as if you are less than or inferior to them? Does your partner make a point of reminding you that you are less educated, or that you make less money, or that you aren't as attractive as they are? Does your partner routinely ridicule, dismiss, or disregard your opinions, thoughts, suggestions, and feelings? Does your partner constantly belittle your accomplishments, your aspirations, or your plans for the future? Do you find yourself walking on eggshells? Do you spend a lot of time monitoring your behavior and or watching for your partner's bad moods before bringing up a subject? Have you stopped seeing many or all of your friends and or family since being in this relationship? Did you do this because your partner dislikes them? Because your partner feels jealous of the time you spent with them? Or because you are ashamed of the way your partner treats you and you don't want to bring your partner so he doesn't treat you like that in front of them? Did you stop seeing friends and family because you are ashamed of the way that your partner is? Does your partner usually insist on getting their own way? Do they want to be the one to decide where you will go, what you will do, and with whom you will do it with? Does your partner punish you by pouting, by withdrawing from you, by giving you the silent treatment, or by withholding affection or sex if you don't do things their way?
Does your partner frequently threaten to end the relationship if you don't do things their way? Does your partner constantly accuse you of flirting or of having affairs even though it isn't true? Does your partner feel they are always right? Does your partner seem impossible to please? Do they constantly complain to you about some aspect of your personality, your looks, or the way you choose to run your life? Does your partner frequently put you down or make fun of you in front of others? Does your partner blame you for their problems? For example, does your partner claim it is your fault if they fly off the handle and start screaming? Do they tell you that they wouldn't do it if you didn't make them so mad? Or are you to blame for their problem with compulsive overeating because they have a drinking problem? Do they blame you for not being able to finish college or fulfilling his dream of becoming an actor, musician, singer, etc.? Does your partner feel you are the one who is responsible for all the problems in the relationship? Does your partner's personality seem to go through radical changes? Is your partner pleasant 1 minute only to be furious the next? Does your partner become enraged with only the slightest provocation? Do they experience periods of extreme elation followed by periods of severe depression? Does their personality seem to change when they drink alcohol? Does your partner tease you, make fun of you, or use sarcasm as a way to put you down or degrade you? When you complain, do they tell you it was just a joke and that you are too sensitive or don't have a sense of humor? Is your partner unable to laugh at themselves? Are they extremely sensitive when it comes to others making fun of them or making any kind of comment they feel shows a lack of respect? Does your partner find it difficult or impossible to apologize or admit when they are wrong? That's a big one. Do they make excuses for their behavior or tend to blame others for their mistakes? Does your partner constantly pressure you for sex and try to persuade you to engage in sexual acts that you find disgusting? Have they ever threatened to find someone else who will have sex with them or will engage in the activities they are interested in? So, I get it, and I know, guys, that was a lot. So, we're going to be revisiting emotional abuse. It's going to be popping up throughout the duration of the podcast. And I'm sure throughout more research studies, we're going to find so much more linked back to what we discussed today and what we'll be discussing in episodes to come. If you want to know what your dosha is, then I'm going to invite you to head over to my website, jbyfnola.org, and you're going to take the dosha quiz and assessment. I'm also going to link that link below in the show notes so that it's just a quick find. Take that because it's going to give you information about what we call your prakriti, what makes you you. Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I want you to tell me what you are the most of. Don't worry about what they are right now. Just figure it out. What are you the most of? Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. Okay, we're a combination of all three. And I want you to bring that back with us for the next episode. Okay, you have a month to prepare, a month to plan. I also want to give you some homework and check out the blog over at JBYF NOLA called Ayurveda, Natural Way to Restore Health, Fight Against COVID. And that's basically, it gives you a lot of information about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha and how to start healing yourself.
Okay. We're going to be growing through a lot of information over the course of these next episodes to come. And there's a lot of healing that we're going to be doing. So please reflect on the questions that I went over today. Really ask yourself, are you the abuser? Are you the abused? Or are you a combination of both? And now let's start to unravel that. Let's start to dismantle that. Everything happens in baby steps. All right, guys. Until next time, I'll see you. I'm Christina with Jai Bhakti Yoga Foundation, the host of The Light in My Shadow. See you in the next episode.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and of all of the different podcasts that you can listen to, that you chose to hang out with me today and go on this journey. So I want to thank you for showing up for yourself as well, for your loved one. If you're listening, it means so much to me that you took the time to do this. I want to invite you to join my community. If you've listened this far and like what you've heard, you can reach out to me personally at Jai Bhakti Yoga at any of those platforms on social media, as well as you can reach out to me via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and email jaibhaktiyoga@gmail.com. Also, please do share this podcast, rate this podcast, review it, and please do continue to support by sharing it with your community so we can provide holistic care to our loved ones. There will be a ton of resources that I will continue to provide for you, so please do continue to check the show notes. And as always, I'm Christina, so much love, your host of The Light in My Shadow, and I will see you in the next episode. Namaste, and be well.